everyone. Welcome to another episode of Policy Beats. Today, we will be discussing a very interesting subject, and we have a very special guest joining us today, Miss Joanna Cooper. Thank you so much, Miss Joanna, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I will make a brief introduction for you, and hopefully, you will share more about all the interesting work that you've been doing. So, Miss Joanna has a diverse background in the fields of education practice, innovation in education, women in technology initiatives, and mentorship. She is an alumnus of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers movement, previously serving as a curator for the Warsaw Hub, and also an alumnus of the Aspen Young Leaders Program. And there's quite a lot that goes on here. I would prefer that you tell us about your journey in the current space that you are, and how did you, sort of make your way in this particular career.
Hmm. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure, and I'm very happy to meet you all. And I'm really enjoying this experience in Pakistan. That's what I want to say at the very beginning. So my career so far and how I was developing it, it was that I always was wearing few hats, and everything is related to education, which is my passion, and I think it's the best actually feel the best place to be at now, because it's been changing so much, and everything is changing now, right? Of course the world is changing, but there's nothing more important than education. There is this quote that education is the only weapon that can change the world, which
Oh,
I
wow.
totally believe in. And everything was tied to that. So currently, these hats I'm wearing are related to education, where I have my own practice, and I work with consultants, with school counselors, with young people, with adults, or with mentors, helping them to especially with the people who are younger, choose their career based on their needs, to tailor it with education systems and with the job market, which is currently changing, but also a lot of background in mentoring through the various organizations I've been associated with, such as Perspective Educational Foundation or Mentors for Starters Foundation, where we actually prepare young leaders, female, especially in perspective, and with Mentors for Starters, other all people to take leadership positions. And we match. Mentoring is a lot about matching the talents with experience. So
Right.
we actually match these talented young people with the leaders who can share their experience so far. And this is actually my passion. I love talking to people, and I love listening to them, and designing everything which is related to education. Therefore, the how schools can work, the universities. I've been associated with the Coventry University as well, which opened in Poland, and also with the Polish universities that I work with. Also, it was I did it on purpose, because I have the feeling that with education, if you want to make a change, you have to understand how the systems work. And we actually have to be engaged, all parties have to be engaged. Therefore, I also decided to, for example, join corporate sector,
Uh-huh.
where I work in innovation field, and where it's also a great opportunity to grow, because I see how the corporations work, how projects are managed, and innovation as such, and especially in the energy sector in which I'm now, as it gives you like great wide range of different opportunities, and you can learn, for example, business models. You can learn how to engage people in knowledge transfer systems, and the knowledge sharing processes that I'm responsible of.
You've mentioned quite a few interesting things here and there, from the corporate sector to
Yes,
innovation technology and
and a lot
knowledge
now.
and knowledge transfers. And I mean, I'm honestly really grateful that you gave us the time to share this
I'm so happy to be
talk.
here.
So we often talk about in academia or in the corporate sector, when when jobs fair happen and all of these events happen to sort of bridge the gap between
Yes,
academia and the labor
yes.
market. Make me understand that with the current I don't know if it's right to say the structural changes that are happening
Yes.
because of technological advancement. What sort of trends do you foresee, transformations that are occurring currently in the labor market, which you also feel need to be addressed by the education sector?
Mhm.
And perhaps you could highlight some things that Poland has been working on as well.
Definitely. I think these things that are really, really now impacting both education and the labor market system is, of course, AI, obviously,
Hmm.
but digitalization as such, and the
Exactly.
fact that the global market is opening. So we are thinking at the same time in local terms, local needs,
Exactly.
but in the global terms, in terms of structures and how
Hmm.
the world changes. Also, what I think is that never ever before there's been as many generations on the market as it is now.
Hmm.
We talk about all these generations, Alpha, Z, millennials, whatever you
Mm.
call them. It doesn't matter as much. It's just the fact that now at the workforce, no matter whether it's Poland or Pakistan or any other country, there will be few generations working together.
Mhm.
So this is changing. It's just changing how we learn things and how we work, in a sense that, for example, the working models have changed since pandemic hit, but
Exactly.
I think it just accelerated what was already happening. That means the remote work.
Hmm.
That means the working with technology became more natural. We understood that we can learn not only from inter connections just offline, but also online. The education and the knowledge itself became more and more open and accessible. I was wondering how is the, for example, podcast market here in Pakistan and Poland is thriving. I have the feeling everybody's doing
Yeah.
podcasts, and it's very easy to learn, right? To get information. But the problem is to select because we are just drowning in information. So what at the same time is crucial for the labor market and for the education to change is the mindset and the skills. So the critical thinking is
Hmm.
very important to learn. We have to learn critical thinking. We have to learn analyzing research facts, and we have to learn how to learn, because at schools, very in traditional ways, quite often when I talk to uh, younger people who are, let's say, around 20 or 18, or but even 20 plus, and I quite often give them like workshops, and then I say these are the workshops on how to navigate, how to choose your course, your studies, whether you need to go to study or not. And I always say that if there's anything I want you to remember from that workshop I gave, is that there are only 6 things you have to learn. You have to learn critical thinking. You have to learn the working with technology. You have
Hmm.
to learn how to learn, because you have to learn and unlearn many
Many
times during
times.
during your career. But you also have to learn about yourself, who you are, and you have to develop also this inner strength to be able to cope with various situations in the very VUCA world, we say, right? Very much changing
Hmm.
world. So this kind of feeling of I'm being strong enough to cope with the
Like
changes.
resilience in a
Resilience,
way.
exactly. That is the word I was searching for. Thank you. So resilience is really, really crucial, and the networking as well, right?
Hmm.
So when it comes to the question, when I think about the labor market and the education, how they should be interlinked, the networking. So the more people work together, because we cannot afford
Hmm.
having education without other stakeholders anymore.
Exactly.
We cannot really afford having education or designing education without the corporate sector, without the NGO sector, without the public sector, without all other domains, because the labor market is changing too fast, and the traditional education doesn't
Hmm.
meet its need anymore. But at the same time, I meet hundreds of people every year who are professionals in their career and who have this natural potential and natural need to share their knowledge. People like to learn teach other people. We like to exchange the knowledge. So one of the trends for the education, I think, which is also kind of linked with the global work market, job market, that OECD mentions in their report, is that it will be more interlinked and it will be more global. So there is a school as a hub. Okay, that's the one thing. But then education happens all the time. Learning happens all the time, everywhere. So you can first invite to the university, like for example, many Polish universities do that very, very well. Specialists in their fields and experts to give their talks. So you can bring the expert to the school and have more project-based learning, have more learning where it's not about doing homework, but actually analyzing and problem-solving skill. Or you can actually take the school out and do some small like places of exchanging knowledge, like hybrids as well. NGOs can work with that, where people can learn all the time, and that the mentoring within the companies, because you will have so many people we're going to work till we die, literally. At least, there is the saying in Poland that there is no retirement system. The retirement system does not cope with the changes. There is, when I'm in Pakistan, I see many young people having kids. It's not the thing in Europe. We don't want to. Like, also the position of women is different. So we say that we will be working till we die. But that means that when you're 50, 60, you have a lot of knowledge to give transfer, but also you have something to learn from this new generation. So reverse mentoring, designing this in the companies, in the workplace, I think will be crucial. So I hope that more or less answers your question.
Oh, it certainly does.
What I think about it. But I see these global trends also with Goldman Sachs report I've been reading recently that 2/3 of jobs in general will be automated, and 1/4 of these jobs will be automated at least in 50%. Then you have the 5% jobs that Goldman Sachs and McKinsey say won't be able to be fully automated. That means actually nobody knows what the future will bring, but definitely there will be like people who are now 10, 5, 11, their workplace will be totally different than ours. And we will have to also be in this workplace, right? So it's a very interesting place to be.
I was going to come to how the changing work environments and how the pandemic accelerated the process, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And for some reason, we've also kind of forgotten the little episode of, of being, just stuck in our homes and just,
little episode,
staring at our laptop. Exactly.
Very well said.
So, like, it's suddenly everyone just forgot that, and different countries, regions are currently imbued in war. There's conflict all over again as if the pandemic never happened. And that's also concerning. But some interesting points on the question that I posed to you, that basically it has to be intersectoral, it has to be multidisciplinary, and you have to consistently build the bridges. Gatekeeping is like an old thing now. So you have to build through networking and sharing. And I think the more that culture is actually proliferated, the more, we're going to see growth. But with current geopolitical dynamics as well, for example, when it comes to US and China, a lot of posturing from the US is that we really need to gatekeep some of our information for critical technologies. And then some other concerns come in, but that's like a higher game to play. But on the ground, when it comes to educational transformation, in the time of digital transformations, it's quite crucial that people, build the bridges. And on your point with regard to changing work environments, I do have a question for you on the role of reskilling people who've reached their peak, right? And so how do you, in a world where there are different changes coming in, not become redundant? For example, you mentioned that some of the jobs may be automated. The people who are doing those jobs, how do you upscale them to, stay relevant or continue to build something new out of what they already know? So I'm interested to know what sort of work is going on that end. And apart from that, we also saw the culture of remote work come in with the pandemic, of course. And post-pandemic as well, we've seen companies show some relaxation for some of their workforce to at least proceed with hybrid work mode. How are we going to see that changing into a entirely remote or something different altogether? What sort of scenarios do you think you foresee with regards to that?
So maybe the reskilling first and then the remote work. The reskilling is so interesting and vast topic because you can have reskilling, upskilling, tech skilling, cross skilling,
Exactly.
all these skillings, which basically show that this is the best definition of long life learning process, right? And the thing is that I don't know what is your opinion, how is it here, but I remember when I was teenager and I was looking up to the people I knew who were working. They had kind of, from my perspective, they had kind of clear career path. Or my parents were doing the same stuff. My dad was an engineer, my mom was a teacher for 30, 40 years. And so they were, of course, gaining new competences, but, they didn't shift, they didn't shift, they
Exactly.
were changing positions, not jobs. So how there are a few things in my mind when I'm thinking about this reskilling and upskilling. First, maybe the general, how do I imagine that, and then what some of the cases I've been familiar with. We all been first, it's just to give yourself. I have the feeling that quite often we are afraid of that because this is risky. It requires a change, and learning and unlearning things.
Yeah.
Unlearning things is not easy. I've been now currently reading Atomic Habits, really cool book, and it's about how to build new habits and how is it really hard to get rid of the old ones. So the first is just to be able to kind of allow yourself to change and to say that you can be a beginner in something even if you're 30 plus, 40 plus, and that's okay because being a beginner doesn't mean you're bad at it. It's natural when you're a beginner, you're not an expert. It's just not logical, right? So
Yeah.
first the mindset, the attitude that we cannot label people with the skill and the age. That means if you're plus 40, you have to have a certain skill in something. But rather your skill is measured by your experience and what you can learn. So you can think about the transferable skills, so the skills that you have and you can already carry through life, no matter in where you are, which are, logical thinking, project management, problem solving, working with systems, working with people, etc., name it. And then there are some maybe hard skills, certain knowledge that you have to acquire because of the new role you're taking. So with the reskilling and upskilling, it's important not to think in terms of what is on my card, which I give to people, like, what is my name card, what is the title, but what is the role of my organization. I really like this quote from Google that we shouldn't ask people who they want to be, because how many of us knows? We should ask them what type of problems they want to solve in their lives, what type of challenges they want to take, and what they want to be responsible for. And then if you have this mindset, it's easier to think about reskilling and upskilling people. And I just imagine this like a tree. And this is how I often explain it to my mentees or people I work with, that imagine that there's some kind of a tree, and it's, let's say, a field, a sector of economy, somewhere in the workplace. And you can, if you just climb up, you see that it's much bigger than you thought at the beginning, because from the inside things look different. You see different branches, you see that you can go up higher, you see that you can just go but
To the sides.
to the sides,
Yeah.
and the view changes when you're at the tree. So but sometimes when you want to change, you have to think in this metaphor, and that makes people design their processes easier. Whether is this a right tree that you're at, or that means you have to go down from the tree and climb
And
to
climb a
another
different
one.
yeah.
Because these are two things, because from climbing to another tree, which requires going down
Coming
from
down, yeah.
from the old one, or maybe the only thing you need is to just go to another part of a tree, just to find a new branch that you're sitting on.
Exactly.
And this will be already something. This
I
will
can
be this
already
reskilling.
visualize it.
Yeah, or you can actually find a branch, go to a branch, and there will be some other tree linked, because trees grow together, sometimes they are connected.
Yeah.
And then you will just go to another tree naturally, because it will link to that. So it's not like one option is good or bad. All are good. But I have the feeling that visualizing it helps us understand what type of tree we want to be at,
Yeah.
and how far or how wide, whether we want to go like a ladder, like in corporate sector, or whether we want to be specialist or meander somewhere, like maneuver this, or whether that means, I don't know, I've been a project manager and Scrum Master all my life, but suddenly I want to become an architect, or I was a lawyer and I want to become I don't know, web designer. It is possible, it can be, but the thing is that these are different strategies and it will require different time and effort.
Exactly.
So you can think about it and design strategically. And then when you think about it, you think about the systems. For example, reskilling and upskilling, especially in Poland, happens through, because we are happy. I think we are really privileged because Poland is really growing country and going so well, despite the geopolitics, which we both talked before, are extremely tricky in this moment. Let's put it in this way. Still, it's growing a lot, and also thanks to, for example, European funds, but also the support of the government, but also the vast and very dynamic NGO sector. You can sign up for so many courses. You can get your various diplomas. You can get workshops. You can acquire new skills while still being employed, for example, at first job, right?
So it's really the access
Yes,
towards
the access,
all these
exactly.
things.
So there are many places where you can just for free. But even without that, there are still, now we are all talking about AI, but we do remember how vast Coursera is, or Udemy, or other platforms. So you can learn through that. And then another thing is that in the organized sectors, like corporate sectors, the best way to reskill and upskill is to just link the skills that your workers need with the strategy of your organization. So how will this go? How will this grow? For example, energy sector, people will need to be more innovative, more risk acceptance. Like they have to have a higher acceptance for risk. They need to know more about product design. They need to know about, working with different stakeholders. And then you think what skills they need, and you offer them inner trainings, or quite often it's also a great option if you're an organization large enough that has the recruitment inside the company. You don't have to kind of prove yourself. You don't have to join the company for another, but you can actually, I know many people whose careers in one company has been developing in many different sectors, and they were going through various departments, from logistics to finance, legal, etc. And they've been actually changing jobs within under one brand, which it's not that obvious quite often. And this is also how you can think about reskilling. Reskilling or upskilling doesn't always mean that you have to change everything.
Yeah.
You have to just think what is the best for you at this very moment.
So it's like understanding, or sort of finding a new way and a new role, a new side to yourself, as you mentioned earlier, that sometimes you have to find that inner strength, different branches about yourself, perhaps.
There is this quote, like job seekers versus job creators, right?
Yeah.
So this job creating, crafting will be very, very important to also thinking in project terms, that you don't have to be attached to one place, but you can work on different projects with different organizations, right? So this, but there was the second question.
It was on the remote work and the hybrid work we saw post-pandemic.
Do you enjoy that? Remote work?
I mean, it's quite interesting because you get to do what you want at your own pace sometimes, but in your own setting, in your own vibe, perhaps. I guess it's different for different people and different types of jobs that you're doing. Some jobs require you more focus, and perhaps not the,
I cannot imagine nurse being a remote worker.
But for a person like me, actually, I enjoy the company of people.
Okay.
I prefer that environment. I want to be interacting with, again, it's people to people, it's different.
Yes.
But sometimes there's certain tasks, perhaps if you're managing social media, for example, you're like, I can just do this from my house, I don't really have to be there. But for other tasks, for example, I'm doing advocacy, I really need to be in loop with people.
You do.
Not just on call, not just through Zoom, but also sometimes in person. We enjoy our lunches, don't we? So there's that too.
And you can learn a lot. Like all these things happen, in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
All the important things.
So yeah, there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And you mentioned about how things have been changing in terms of how people pursue their jobs, and you're absolutely right. In Pakistan too, the culture of either going to be a doctor, to be a teacher, to be a in the military service, or
mm,
just being part of the
yeah,
bureaucratic system. These were considered the 4 or 5 main lines where you could really
yeah.
succeed. And then came the engineering element. But from this particular time, it's not like that anymore.
No, totally.
So people who are engineers will be working in the social science space. People working in the
Sure.
social science space will be moving towards understanding the technology space. And I think
Yeah,
it's really the convergence of all these fields that is going to help us build the future as
yeah,
well, and how that impacts the workspace. Um,
totally. So I
and
think like with the remote work, what you mentioned is that there are some things that can be easily done while working remotely. And for example, many people now I in Poland, there were companies after the COVID which wanted people to go back fully
yeah.
to the offices, and there was a huge problem with that.
Mhm.
They were trying to organize a pizza day, whatever, to come back and be in the office. But when you live in the city and you have to commute for 2 hours one way or
Exactly.
1 hour one way, I'm really opting for hybrid, and I think because there are things that has to be done in person, and it's good if they're done in person. But there are many things that
That
could
don't
just
need
be an
that.
email.
Yeah. Exactly. It could just be an email. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree.
Totally agree with that one. But then again, here and also comes the concept of how you're shaping your labor forces,
Yeah,
how you're looking into hiring, how you're
yeah,
firing, and a lot of things are
yes,
also based on the changing
yes,
dynamics. I
yes.
would then obviously ask you, on obviously AI technology, all of that has been quite disruptive in a good and bad way.
Mm-hmm.
But how much of a good and bad way for the workforce? I think you can share that with us in your terms. And also, let's come towards a little gendered element. And since you also previously mentioned about women in technology and how you focus on that sort of mentorship, I'm really interested to know the sort of importance that this brings when it comes to the labor force participation and in building productive societies.
Mm-hmm. So when starting with the women in tech, I think it's crucial, and I've been introduced to this idea back in 2018 when I started to work with Perspective Women in Tech Summit, and I just see how world is changing now as well, especially when you think about the labor force and um, it all STEM courses always been seen as something that men can do. I remember I have a sister who's 14 years older than me, and she was studying cybernetics
Oh wow.
back in the 90s at the best Polish technical university. And she was one of the very few women at cybernetics and biomechanics because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't considered a girly thing to do. And uh, this thinking leads you to nowhere because actually, if women are 50% of the labor force, why would you miss that opportunity? And also, because we always say it that way, and I always explain it in this way. The future of jobs, everybody wants to have a secure, good job on the
Mm-hmm.
market. Of course, it's going to be vast. There are new jobs emerging every year, every month now.
Yeah.
uh, and then you have like there are the statistics from World Economic Forum that up to 60% of the teenagers will be working in the jobs that they're
Mm-hmm.
not don't exist yet. So you have this emerging, but still they are kind of linked to technology. Many of them are. And why not to give the opportunity to everyone, the equal opportunity? Because there is really no difference between men and women, and many proofs that psychological research or social research can bring on the brain as well, that we're just as good. So why not to let people use their own natural talents, but they have to be encouraged. And then it's just a future of work would be, I don't know, nurse. Then there are many more female nurses than the male nurses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody would have to do programs for men to attract them more into nursing, right? So this is why you also need to have this shift in programs who support and show the role models.
Right.
So because the more diversity we have in terms of gender, but in terms of cognitive skills, in terms of natural talents in a workplace, it's crucial for also the technology to emerge and develop, especially because we're building models, like large language models, which are based on the data we produce and we give. So if we give biased data, biased by, for example, one gender, biased by one nation, biased by one type of thinking, what type of results we will get? So I think this is a huge wave that it's now happening in terms of emerging, like letting women go in technological aspects, and I see many men supporting that, so many workplaces supporting that. There's this huge discussion in Poland regarding quotas or not. There's also been change because Polish language has suffixes, like the endings of the words depending on the female or male gender. So we are now using this female endings more to like inżynierka, not inżynier, because it used to be she, engineer, like inżynier, but she is actually inżynierka. Yeah, you see the difference at the ending.
Right.
So we used to have that before communism. So now we are going back to this just to give more presence to the women who lead the technological sectors. And the emerging technologies and the AI is a vast factor of this and very crucial factor of this whole change. Especially that I've been at the conference a few months ago where I had heard this quote from Google that AI power computing doubles every 6 months.
Oh dear Lord.
Doubles every 6 months. That's crazy. And then Kurzweil has the statistics that in the next 100 years, the technological change will be equal to last 20,000 years. So we are gonna be living in the world which is just it's just, I know it's trivial, no, everybody say that, but it's something unprecedented that is happening now.
I mean, it's quite interesting because half of the world is yet to grasp on the current technological landscape.
You're right.
And so how that deepens the digital poverty is what I would like to term it.
Yes,
In terms,
and
like
I see two
the sort of
sides of
social
it.
impacts.
I'm really interested in what you're thinking and what you see in Pakistan, because I have the feeling like Europe is kind of a bubble. So I didn't see that much inequality in Europe, for example, in Poland when I came to Pakistan for the first time. And I think in this terms and in education, but also technology, at some point it democratizes, right? Because no matter where you are, no matter in what village you live, if you only have the access to the internet, you can sign up for a Stanford course, right?
Exactly.
This is perfect. On the other hand, there are people who are using advanced AI technologies. They are writing prompts, they're creating this whole documents, and there are still people who do not know how to use Google properly.
There's a parallel universe, actually.
Yes.
And what perhaps is always of interest to me is how are we talked about bridging, but how do you bridge something that is already so backward in time? But I mean, these are concerns that perhaps our policymakers and people in the global setup really perhaps have to also think about and create some sort of impact on. My concluding questions to you then would be, how do you then think, you visited Pakistan and we just mentioned the divide as well. How do you think then we build a culture of innovation and inclusivity at the same time? And my focus from you would be on, perhaps from the lens of education. How do you influence policymakers? And as you know, the show Policy Beats, I would like to understand what sort of policy steps do you feel need to be taken generally, not just on Pakistan, Poland, but in this particular space. So please let us know.
I'm thinking about the thing that comes to my mind is that, for example, there is now interesting change in Poland in the curriculum of both Polish schools, where they are actually introducing the business as a course to curriculum, and you can get final exams on that as well. And people are people who are running it are from business, are just invited, to speak, to host, etc. And then also working with the third sector, the policymakers, so the government working with the third sector, for example, because there was a really nice initiative run by also NGOs, exempt from theories, funny story, where they let kids do social projects and they teach them project management.
Okay.
And this can be like a social Olympics, which they run and they compete which projects were the best. So they're doing something for their communities, and at the same time they learn practical skills on public speaking, on fundraising or project management, etc. They can get certificates from Google and other companies. And this has been also like these various of these stakeholders were invited to talk and to shape together, the curriculum, how it can be done. So I think this is the important factor that we just try to cope and talk together and sit and think through what has to be done.
Right.
I had one more thing in my mind, but I forgot it now. Can you remind me the question? I had.
Well, I was asking you about how, through the lens of education,
Yeah.
can we create a
Yes,
culture
yes,
of innovation?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I also want you to tell me what is your perspective.
Sure.
Here. I'm really interested, because another thing I think it's really crucial is to teach through education also the innovation is always risky, and it's okay to fail and it's okay to try. And there is a high risk awareness, at least in the Polish society, and it's not that obvious. Like if you fail, that means if you don't do something perfect from the very beginning, then you fail. But you can learn a lot from failures. So just to be able to embrace that and the process, to kind of to sink in the process itself, that just like these atomic habits, you do things slowly better, and then it brings a huge effect at the end. And the collaboration, because if we have the environment, we do have to collaborate. It just helps to innovate. Innovation doesn't happen just like that in one person's mind, even if you think about Musk or any other people. There's a really cool book, Innovators DNA, which mentions the 5 necessity skills for innovation. And one of them is networking. There is this curiosity, observing, just associating things together, right? And experimenting. So if we allow through various educational methods for these competences to learn, these are the skills that are actually crucial, no matter if you're an engineer, no matter if you're an artist, whoever you are, to help you to bring new ideas to life.
That's quite interesting. And you asked me my perspective too.
Yeah,
so,
I want to know.
I don't know if you've heard this, but at least for Pakistan, many people say that Pakistan is a place where you have talented youth.
Yes.
Now, that's one ingredient set for the right cultural innovation.
Yes.
However, the problem then is with the other ingredients. As you said, a conducive environment that enables you. So for that, again, like I mentioned, that the divide is already so deep to catch up with what's going on. The direction really has to come from our political will, our ability to perhaps envisage a vision for the society, a community. And as you know, Pakistan currently is going through multiple crises. There's like a perma-crisis situation going on with the economy and the politics. While this is chaos, there's also opportunity, as Sun Tzu would say.
Yeah.
So the innovator in this country is currently just waiting for the right time to shine. And we're looking for some form of certainty, some sort of support, be it the government, be it the people, be it the community. So I feel like for us, we really look forward to an environment that places us in a position where we can experiment, where we're not risk averse, but rather we are willing to take the risk, knowing that even if there's a free fall, you know where you're landing, right?
Yes.
You still have to have some sort of certainty or support. Currently Pakistan, within the technology space, we're trying to build up the STZAs, the special technology zones. We're trying to create more incubation centers for people who want want to build startups, trying to bring them together through multiple courses within the technical space, creating that advocacy. But, for a person like me, I would want to believe that advocacy when I see a role model. So, in my personal opinion, I think what we're missing is a role model in the current few years. So, it's just about being the role model yourself then. And for that to happen right now in this space is quite turbulent, and everyone's just looking at each other who's going to take the first step. So I guess the cultural sort of problems that we're facing, hopefully, if some maintenance happens on that end, we're going to see perhaps some confidence come out. That's how I see it. I mean, innovation can't just happen when you're just half of your community is impoverished,
Yes.
or you're not able to provide basic rights to people, although the government is working on that end. But as you know, we do face some security issues, and a lot is going on that front. Regardless, I would hope that a few policies have come out, and that we're able to enable the youth, people like myself, to build towards a larger vision, something that complements the country altogether and adds to the positive global trends. That's how I see it, at least.
I totally understand. It's very interesting what you're saying, and that reminds me of the things like social entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
And just building the communities which are just designed, or even the small, like what you do in your think tank, what you do with your podcast. So bringing people who think alike you, even if there are like few of them,
Exactly.
you're already a team. And then
Yeah.
with the team, you can go further and better. And the social innovation then can emerge, right? Because the problem is that, or the challenge maybe is that sometimes we would like to, when we think about the change, we already see so many things we need to change. And it takes time. You cannot change the whole world, right?
Exactly.
So there's this focus needed. And so
Exactly.
what is the actually really small thing you can do, but it will have the biggest
impact,
that impact
exactly.
which will already help and start this ball rolling, sorry, and we'll have I really hope that for Pakistan, and I know that especially in terms of youth, because you're such a young country. Statistically,
Exactly.
you're such a young country, and there's so much talent, especially now in IT. So this is something I find similar also when Poland is mentioned as the tech talent or tech hub. So there's huge potential, right? You just need space for that. You just need space to do what you
Exactly.
want to do, and things will happen.
Exactly. And so I just hope that, through this discussion with you as well, people who are interested, who are looking for inspiration, I would hope that they would reach out to you as well. And it's always better to engage and talk about these things. You get to learn more. There's no gatekeeping. The concept of gatekeeping is so redundant now if you really want to excel.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think one of my key takeaways from your entire conversation was also about the self creation that you do in the process of what you're innovating or designing. Thank you so much, Miss Joanna. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you. It
talking
was
to
a
you.
pleasure to talk to you
And
too.
although I have so many more questions to, ask, hopefully we'll have the chance to speak with you again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I had a great time here.
Thank you so much, everyone, for
Thanks.
tuning in to this episode. I will see you again on another episode of Policy Beats.